everyone, and a warm welcome to the Sappi Blue Couch series, where we talk about all the latest developments in the world of Sappi and the most important trends in the paper industry. My name is Mariana Evenstein, and our topic today is label papers between growth and sustainability. To talk about this and a whole lot more, I'm very pleased to welcome two experts who are joining us today for this conversation. We begin with Corey Michael Reardon. He is President and CEO of AWA, Alexander Watson Associates, which is a global business-to-business market research, publishing, and advisory services company, which focuses on the labeling and product decoration market. So, Corey, great to have you with us. And from Sappi, we're very pleased to have with us today Robert Gabriel-Jürgens. He is head of sales for the label papers business, and among his many tasks, he's currently overlooking the harmonization and streamlining of the label product portfolio at Sappi. So gentlemen, welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much.
I think it makes sense for us just to begin by getting an overview of where things stand now. So Corey, maybe you can give us first a brief explanation of what we're talking about when we talk about label papers, the different types of labels, and also where the market currently stands now.
Yeah, great. It's quite an interesting market. The label market is broader than what we might think of in terms of how it fits into packaging and other areas of packaging as a decorating technology. So we tend to look at the label market as a label and product decoration market with varying different types of label formats, of which Sappi is a big supplier of papers into a number of the key formats like glue applied labeling and pressure sensitive labeling. There's other formats like in mold and shrink sleeve labeling that make up the total of the labeling and product decoration market. But two of the larger labeling formats like glue applied and pressure sensitive label are predominantly paper-based, although film materials are used as face papers or face materials in these label formats, while shrink sleeve is a label format which is basically on film substrates. But the two large formats of glue applied and pressure sensitive are 2/3 on paper and 1/3 on film. So you see both paper and film being used in different labeling formats. And as the market continues to grow, and all these formats are growing at varying degrees, but overall label is growing at about 4% on a global basis, with a bit higher growth in pressure sensitive compared to glue applied, but all formats tend to have good growth prospects.
Well, I just can confirm what Corey said. We definitely see a strong upward trend and growth in label papers, no matter which substance used or which technology is used for the application. And yeah, label papers have always been a growth area for Sappi and a very strategic business for us. Not just since 2010, when Sappi acquired the Calm Paper Group, for example, we have access to wet strength papers and to high quality face stock papers, which give, let's say, one major part of the market. But on the other hand, we are also actively driving this growth in the market. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why we also invested in Reardon mill, an investment which will become effective with next year. But we are already announcing this to the market right now that Sappi is also taking part in the wet strength label business on an industrial scale, a higher scale that we are active before. And the Reardon mill will be one of the central mills in the Sappi network for the label papers. So we will produce their face stock papers, we will produce wet glue label papers for non-wet strength applications, but also from next year onwards then for wet strength applications. This is what we do also to take part in this growth of the market and to also offer some choice for the customers to buy from Sappi.
Well, the function of labels obviously is to convey information about a product or a brand, but it also says a lot about the quality, actually, of the product of the brand. So if I'm a brand owner, what is the advantage of using really high quality label papers like the kind that Sappi offers?
Well, with the question, you already give some part of the answer. Of course, it's the quality itself, which Sappi is well known for, producing high quality and consistent quality. Because imagine that you have a variation in shade, for example, in a label, and you imagine the same label from different batches on the same product in the same shelf. You may see differences in the whiteness, for example, of that label, and it makes the consumer confused about the age of a certain product, because the one which looks a bit more grayish, for example, it may be perceived as older, and it's not bought when there's some kind of apparently new batch on the shelf as well. So that shall not happen with Sappi products. And of course, there's also different facets, like for example, the global representation of Sappi. We consider ourselves a global company being represented locally by our sales network, by the network of our technical service, for example. We are always present where the customer is, especially the global brand owner groups. If you, for example, take the Sappi network or the technical sales network globally, and you put next aside a network of a global brand owner, you would see almost the same locations, the same sales office locations. And there, of course, we are present at the customers. We can always react very fast if there's the need for assistance, if there's the need for consultation. We are always there around. And not to forget about, of course, is the financial stability of a big group like Sappi. I mean, we are so diversified. We have different legs. We don't have just labels. We have paper boards. We have dye sublimation products. We have a lot more packaging and a lot more. So that means that we can definitely split the risk of, let's say, external shocks like a pandemic, for example. No doubt that also the pandemic hit us, but it has hit us a lot less severe than, for example, other companies. So where brand owners are globally active, they also require a stable supplier, and that's definitely one of our strengths.
Now, Corey, you mentioned different types of formats for labels, but I wanted to just zero in on two of the broader categories. Those are the self-adhesive labels and the wet glue labels. What are the changes in these two types of labeling processes, and what are the challenges for each, respectively?
Yeah, good question. I think they're both dominant labeling technologies. Wet glue labeling is probably one of the more mature labeling formats. It's been around quite a long time. It has some advantages in terms of economies of scale and cost advantages. It's very predominantly a paper-based labeling format. So it does have some credentials around sustainability that are quite relevant today, even though it's a very old labeling format. It's probably one of the more sustainable labeling formats in terms of some of its credentials around the papers being used, around the types of adhesives being used that are water soluble. While pressure sensitive has been a large growth technology over the years and still grows at a faster rate than the overall market because of its flexibility and the variety of different face materials that you can use, and the flexibility and the cost of the technology for applying it is quite an advantage to brand owners, which makes it an attractive technology. It also has some challenges today in terms of the liner or the matrix byproduct that it produces, but the industry is really on top of working on finding solutions from a sustainability standpoint of what to do with this liner or matrix waste. And there's a consortium called C-Lab, which I think Sappi is a active member in.
You're a member, yeah.
To work on solutions around some of these sustainability issues.
Yeah, you mentioned already C-Lab. That's a really great initiative that we are presented again. And yeah, it's of course not the end of the road where we are, and there's research to be taken. We are just a paper producer, but of course we support this initiative and also all our customers in finding ways to minimize the waste itself. That's still the best way to do with the waste, not to let it happen. But of course, with the recycling and of this liner waste, I think C-Lab says it's possible to recycle some of the waste depending on the way it was produced. So there are initiatives, and I'm sure there will be coming up more initiatives and more ways to recycle this waste.
Yeah. In the future. And I think there's certainly a trend towards fiber-based solutions, so paper versus film, although we see film applications continue to grow because of some performance requirements that one may have over the other. I always will say, film isn't bad, it's human behavior that is, when we talk about, sustainability with regards to film. But paper or fiber-based solutions tend to be growing of interest to brand owners in terms of sustainability credentials that we see some interesting growth.
So most labels are paper-based, and yet, as you say, others continue to be made using plastic materials. Why are people still using these plastic materials? I mean, what are the different drivers for businesses or even consumers to choose plastic over paper or paper over plastic?
Well, in some cases, for performance reasons, if a label on a container is used in a wet or moist environment, the plastic label may hold up more better than a paper label. In some cases, for recycling, to put a polyester label or a polyolefin label on a polyolefin container, for recycling, it's easier. So there's sometimes very practical reasons why film over paper would be used, but it certainly should be noted that I think somewhere around 67% of the label materials today are paper-based or fiber-based. So it certainly is a dominant substrate format.
We keep talking about sustainability. It is something that's on people's minds more and more, I think it's safe to say. The paper industry is trying to move into more sustainable directions, but what are the challenges? I mean, I think everybody would like to become greener as fast as they possibly can, but it's not always possible to do it as quickly as we would like. So what are then the main bottlenecks when it comes to transitioning to more sustainable products and processes for labels?
Well, the good thing is that paper labels are made from a renewable resource. The fiber itself, the tree, it grows again. So by that, there's no end date to that material, like opposite for film-based material, for example. I don't know when that end date will be, but it's clear that that resource has a limited supply. So as the trees are growing again, it's always renewing. And we are, as Sappi, for example, using 100% wood from responsibly managed forest. That includes certain certifications like FSC, like PEFC, these initiatives that we cooperate with. Sappi as a group is member of various programs like the UN Social Development Goals that we have defined for us. Altogether, we have defined more than 9 goals that we are following up as a group. Plus, we are rated in EcoVadis as platinum status, for example. We are part of the carbon disclosure program. So what we are doing as Sappi, we are as transparent as possible in what we do, and we try to minimize also the impact that we have as an industry company, of course. We are very responsible with the resources that we use for our everyday life, and also for the purpose, for the benefit of our future generations. We protect and take care of that these resources are properly used.
Yeah, and I think the two challenges to the industry are one, there's lots of sustainable solutions, but if it costs more, then that's very difficult to pass through the value chain to the end consumer. So that often becomes a bottleneck is, solutions are there, but the cost of the solution prohibits its commercialization. I think the other, key challenge to the industry is to look at solutions in a more holistic view. If you have to ship material or labels or packaging across a continent or across the sea, that's not very sustainable, even though that product might be more sustainable. So I think the challenge is to create sustainability that is holistically sustainable, taking into account transportation, materials, application, and the types of containers it's being put on, et cetera. And I think that requires a lot of cooperation, across the value chain, or cooperation with competitors even, to solve some of these problems.
All right, so the cooperation across the value chain, very important in moving towards a more holistically sustainable way of creating label papers and marketing them and selling them, manufacturing them. But people always want to quantify. What does it give me? So if I was to ask, how would you quantify the importance of these types of networks between label manufacturers, printers, brand owners? What's in it for each of them to work closely together?
I'll let you try that.
Well, you name it. It's very difficult to quantify, and there's no figure behind that. I would say it's just the good feeling and the ability to report jointly in the network that this whole triangle of paper producer, of converter, of brand owner is together taking action and taking into account the environmental impact and the well-being, so that the resources are properly used. So by the intensity of these programs and the intensity of reporting, all of these parties can show that we are very responsible with all the resources.
Yeah, and I think some of these challenges or maybe opportunities for the industry are much bigger than one company. So unless there's collaboration, not only across the value chain with customers and suppliers and customers, but collaboration between traditional competitors on solving some challenges that are bigger than just one company is the only path forward. And we're seeing that in various initiatives. We mentioned C-Lab, and there's other initiatives that are certainly well underway in terms of recycling, in terms of sustainability, that I think will propel the industry forward and keep it strong and growing into the future.
So, Corey, I think you've brought us to the end by taking us to the beginning of this conversation, which was label papers between growth and sustainability. Where are we between growth and sustainability, you would say, gentlemen? Can we have both?
I think for sure we do have both. The industry is, if I look back even 5 years, is much more sustainable. The awareness of what needs to be done is light years ahead of where it was even 5 years ago, and the growth is still happening. I mean, it's a growth market, even in the sense of potential recession or downturn in the economy. Much of labels are used in food and beverage products, health and beauty care, or detergents. Those are still being bought in economies that are slowing down, which may be expected in the near future. So the prospects for the industry continue to be quite strong.
Absolutely, I can only support that. We also see that the markets are growing. Also in the pandemic, we saw a lot of more internet sales, which required packaging and labeling, and so whatever the economic situation is, there will always be labels. And we have the growing population on a global scale as well. All of these new human beings, they will also require food, they will require clothing, they will require anything. And all of these items, they usually have a label. So there's a bright future for the label business as such, no matter which technology is used. And sustainability, of course, always plays a bigger role the day after tomorrow. So there's more to come, and it's a very exciting time to be in at the moment, because we have this awareness as an industry, as consumers. Also, consumers are looking more for sustainable solutions when it comes to fiber-based packaging. That is also a trend that we see here.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much for sharing your insights. That was Robert Gabriel-Jürgens from Sappi and Corey Michael Reardon from AWA.
Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
And that's it for this edition of the Sappi Blue Couch series. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you join us again next time. Bye.